Welcome to Dodgers Daily. I'm Casey Porter. I'm so glad that you decided to tune in. We have a very, very, very special guest tonight. Right-handed pitcher in the Dodgers organization, Michael Hobbs, joins Dodgers Daily. So, Michael, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we're going to start with a light moment here. And I know you went to St. Mary's there in California, and that's, we were just talking before we came on the air, St. Mary's, the Gales. I'll tell you what, they've turned into a pitching factory, and I hate to give you some bad news, but as good as you are, man, you made it all the way to high A this year. You're not the most famous pitcher to come out of there recently. Tony Gonsolin, obviously, with the Dodgers, came out of St. Mary's, and then Corbin Burns as well with the Brewers. So who do you think the most famous pitcher to come out of St. Mary's lately is?
Yeah, those guys are definitely up there in the latest group. I would say bringing it back to before those guys had got called up and all that. When I had first got there, I actually came in with Casey Candiotti, who his father is Tom Candiotti, the famous knuckleballer. So up until that point, actually, of me getting there, we had some other guys. Wisdom, I think he had been in the league for a while before that as well.
Was he a catcher in college?
So I wasn't there at his time. Okay. I'm not too sure. But I know that Big Tom had a lot of big league time under his belt.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And did you get to pick his brain? Now, Clark Candiotti, I believe, was there as well too. He's the another son of Tom too. Did you get to pick Tom's brain?
A little bit. He actually wasn't around too much when he was. We talked a little bit. But we kept it pretty casual, honestly, kind of more about the school and how everybody's kind of gelling together and stuff like that. But
yeah, so very cool experience. And then you went to Corona High School and you got to play for a coach that played for the Chicago Cubs, got to pitch in the College World Series. So, man, you really got a lot of great tutelage early in your career. And then obviously you got to go to St. Mary's, just a wonderful pitching factory, a wonderful college in itself, wonderful baseball school. So talk about your time at Corona and growing up.
Yeah, so it was awesome, man. Andy Wise is the man. He knows what he's doing over there. He was a huge part of it, as well as the older guys that were there when I came in. Seth Kaneen, he ended up going to CVU, graduated from there. Tristan Beck went to Stanford, drafted by the Braves, traded over to the Giants. He's in AAA with them right now. So I had those guys as juniors in front of me when I was coming in as a freshman. And I'm going to be honest, man, they kind of laid down the law. They showed everyone, what's right, what's wrong. And if it was wrong, they were kind of going to let you know about it.
That's how good teams work, isn't it?
Absolutely. Definitely. And that's just kind of part of us too. Like our biggest thing was win at all costs. And that's kind of how it is, with the Dodgers right now. But it was awesome getting kind of brought up in that sort of atmosphere with those older guys kind of taking charge and leading the way.
Yeah. So you mentioned, kind of having some older guys that mentor the rest of the team and kind of put the law down as far as, hey, this is how things go around here. And we're going to win doing it like this. And I know you were drafted in the 10th round, the 2020 draft, and we'll get into that here in a minute. I personally think you were the absolute steal of that draft. You should have went before that. But Chris Campos got drafted out of St. Mary's last year. So I'm sure you reached out to him and kind of gave, that speech that you got from all those older guys at St. Mary's. Did you give him one of those speeches about the Dodgers?
Yeah, definitely. A little bit with the Dodgers, it was, I would say more this time through it was a little bit more of a congratulations. But it was awesome, man. I was super pumped for Chris, and I've got nothing but good things to say about him. And if you talk to anybody else about him, they're all going to tell you that he's a gamer. He goes out there to win. There's no slowing him down. He's laying out, he's diving, sliding, doing whatever it takes. But yeah, I was super pumped, man. I was glad he was in our org too.
So if you listen to Michael talk here, you can tell winning is very important, as it is for everybody at his level. And then just the competitive vibe that you get whenever you hear him talk is just awesome. And I know you had 6 saves on a very loaded St. Mary's Gales team, and I have seen you pitch. You absolutely love the big moments of games, don't you?
Definitely.
So talk about, what is it about your personality? What, take us through those big moments. What do you like about them? What about those moments make you so competitive and execute the way that you do?
I would say it's honestly, it started from high school. Like I said, from those older guys, and I was definitely not thrown in those big moments right away. Freshman year, I didn't play as a freshman at Corona. Sophomore year, I was out of the pen, and then I didn't really get the biggest taste of it until junior year. So I think it was kind of that sense of kind of really having to claw my way up to kind of be a guy on that team is definitely where it stems from. And obviously, everybody wants to pitch in the biggest moment of the game, or bases loaded, tie game or whatever. Honestly, I think the biggest part is kind of just understanding that whatever the situation is, it kind of stays the same the whole time. I don't get extra geeked up if it's if we're up 1 or if we're up 10. It's the same way all the way through.
That's fantastic. You can kind of lower your blood pressure and not freak out in the moment and just kind of keep everything down. Some people call it having ice in your veins, but obviously you can close. We've talked about that. You love the big moments. You love to have the ball in your hand when it matters the most, but you've also shown that you can extend too. And one thing that the Dodgers really like in all their players, especially their pitchers, is whenever they have versatility, because you don't have to have starters and then closers. And then if you have a guy that can kind of do a little bit of all of it, that's very valuable to this organization. I know you've done quite a bit of that too.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty cool to kind of get a sense of it. We, especially at the beginning of the year, we have guys on certain pitch counts, inning limits, stuff like that. And regardless of that, as soon as pitch 1 comes from our starter, like everybody's ready. It's, we kind of have an idea, as the game goes along or whatever it is, but you don't really know until you hear whoever's name it is on the walkie. And that could be in the first, could be in the third, or later in the game, or whatever it is. So you kind of got to stay on your toes. But yeah, man, it's, for me, whatever the situation calls, that's what I'm trying to be ready for. I don't ever want to have a moment to where I feel like I'm not ready for whatever that may be.
So I got to see you pitch in college. I'm a big college baseball fan and big fan of yours. You're obviously very good. Your hair was different. You had longer hair. So, usually whenever somebody cuts their hair, I was talking to Taylor Young a while back, and he cut his hair as well. He had a mullet actually when he was at Louisiana Tech, and he went like 1 for 15 or something like that and cut it. So is there a story behind the hair and cutting your hair, or you just like it better like it is now?
Not really, honestly. So I went to summer ball in West Virginia, and I kept it for a while.
What league is in West Virginia? I'm not familiar.
Okay, so in 21, that year that I was drafted, they started it's called a draft league. It's ran by PBR, and that was like their inaugural year. It was their first year of doing it. I played under Jed Jerko. He was our manager for that team. So, but yeah, back to the hair.
I got to meet Jed. Not to cut you off, but I got to meet Jed. The Dodgers picked him up on some kind of free agency deal. He was with Oklahoma City for like about a month in August. Yeah. And you talk about an awesome, cool dude to have around, man. He is cool.
Jed's awesome. I got nothing but good things to say about the guy. He helped me through a bunch of stuff out there as well. And yeah, he's the man. And anytime, if I get a chance, if he visits or I'm out there, that's a guy that I want to see for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And you get drafted 10th round. If you go to my social media, I have it all over my social media. 10th round, 2021 draft. I think I said 2020 earlier. It's actually the 2021 draft. You got drafted in the 10th round. And I'm just telling you, if you've seen this guy pitch, if you saw him pitch in college, if you see him now, 10th round, he is the absolute steal of the 2021 draft. I don't care what anybody says. So I know 10th round is not high at all. Don't get me wrong with that. But in my opinion, you should have went lower. So do you kind of have maybe a chip on your shoulder about that? Is there any motivation there, or just kind of show up and do what you're supposed to do every day?
Yeah, it's more of the latter, honestly. I think, I think I always play with the chip on my shoulder. I don't think, being drafted in the 10th really has too much to do with it. To be honest, I had no idea whatsoever what it was going to be going into it, whether I was going to get drafted in the 10th or not drafted or signed at all or whatever it is. So I'm honestly just kind of happy and thankful that it ended up working out the way it did. It was definitely a lot more hectic than I thought it would be in terms of, communications with certain guys beforehand and whatnot. But yeah,
Well, they
honestly,
go so fast, the picks do at that time. You're having to, I mean, it's like lightning fast, isn't it?
definitely.
So you got off to a great start this year. You had an ERA somewhere in the mid twos, and then you had the injury, and then thank goodness you made it back in September and pitched really well your last 3 outings. I believe you had 3 outings when you got back off of injury, in September, and you did not allow a run for your 3 outings. So take us through how you got started, your injury, and was that frustrating for you? What'd you do during your time during your injury? How did you make it back, and how do you feel like you finished 2022?
Yeah, man. So the injury itself was actually super annoying to say the least. I've had I had surgery beforehand. I know what it's like to go through a full rehab process, all that sort of stuff. But this was after we ended up getting checked out, it was really just inflammation. There was nothing structurally wrong, so we were happy about it. But it had been nagging for so long, and it had taken so long to fully clear up and clear itself out or whatever. So that was the most frustrating part, because in my head, it's like I'm telling myself that, I'm not hurt. I just got a little, whatever it is that, I need to get it cleaned up or cleaned out. And it ends up taking longer than I had planned. But yeah, I was happy the way that I was able to come back and feel better from that to be able to finish the season. It definitely would have sucked if, I did all that and then I pushed too close to that line and don't get to finish up there in Michigan with the boys. But yeah, I think obviously it was frustrating, but I was glad at how I came back, at least for those last couple of weeks.
I was talking to Kevin Pillar a couple months ago, and he dealt with injury this year too, and he got to come back with Oklahoma City for like the last 6 games, and he sounded just like you in the sense that, you go through all this and it's frustrating, but he was just so thankful that he got actually into games, getting back on the other side of it, carrying momentum into the offseason. So do you feel like you're carrying some pretty good momentum?
Absolutely. Yeah, I felt great coming back, and then the way it works is we kind of shut down right after that for the guys that aren't going to Instructs or the Fall League or whatever it is. And then building back up, I've felt great ever since. So I'm super happy with how it's gone so far and kind of how it's going to go into spring training 2023.
Yeah, so you've obviously played at a great high school program. You played at a great college program there in St. Mary's. Now you're with the Dodgers, and I try to tell people every time I have a chance, the Dodgers instructional system is second to none. So can you speak to that as far as the instruction you get in the Dodgers organization?
Yeah, it's awesome. And some of the stuff that I hear also from other guys as well that have came from different orgs or traded, re-signed, whatever is, honestly, just the amount of staff and how hands-on certain people can get. I can't really speak from a hitter's perspective, which I know is great. But from a pitching perspective, everything that we need and stuff that we don't even think we need, but other people know we do is all over us, right? We got guys, obviously Donnie Alexander, Rob Hill, Minta, all these guys are coordinators that are above us. They're helping us with everything that we need. So development overall, obviously I haven't been in another org, but from what I've heard from different guys, it's second to none.
Yeah, and just looking at Dennick, who's the Tulsa pitching coach, which you'll be there shortly, and then Anderson and Olinger, they've all coached together. And so, I mean, the handoffs are just absolutely flawless when you talk about this system. But got the news today that your manager, Austin Chubb, manager of the year. How about that, huh?
Yep. Yeah, no, I'm super pumped for that guy. My buddy actually had reposted. I just looked at it before this. He said I'd run through a wall for this guy, and that's exactly how I feel. Chubb's the man, and he knows how to win. That's for sure.
Very prepared, and I know you like that because you're the type of guy that likes to be very prepared as well. So, we talked about the momentum you're carrying into the offseason. So take us through what the offseason is going to look like for you.
Yeah, so basically right now it's pretty light. All of our lifts are on our our little programming that we got, our throwing. We got our conditioning, our plyo ball throws, all that sort of stuff. So basically what it looks like is, wake up, kind of get going, do my thing, lift. And then from there I'll eat, and then I'll go to the field to Corona. I actually live like less than a mile away. So that's kind of where I'm doing my throwing and helping out over there. And then I finish up the rest of my stuff over there and kind of call it a day after that.
Fantastic. That sounds like a great life. So, we talked about, you had the great start to 2022, then the injury, then you got to come back. Now you have all this momentum. We've talked about your off season. So tell us, what do you expect out of 2023? I know that's a long ways away, and I know baseball players are day to day, but from just kind of an overall perspective, what do you expect out of this next season coming up?
Honestly, a lot of similar stuff from this last season. I think the biggest thing is going to be the health part. Just trying to keep myself together. Obviously, it sucked that how minor it was kind of kept me down for that long. But just making sure everything's cleaned up going into it. I'm taking care of myself in the right ways and all that sort of stuff. But kind of just doing the same thing, man. I really want to focus on in terms of a statistical portion of it, keeping my walks down as much as I can. Obviously when I force it in there, a lot of the times like good stuff is going to happen. And so, yeah, that's really for me going to be, I think, the most important part.
Yeah. So you mentioned keeping the walks down. So let's get to your stuff. And when I saw you at St. Mary's, you seemed kind of more like maybe a sinker, kind of a guy that liked to move the ball, keep it at the bottom of the zone a little bit more, and then like to maybe throw a slider every now and then. Then when I saw you with Great Lakes, it seemed like you were throwing some four seams and the slider and that kind of deal. So would that be accurate at all, or have you been the same type of pitcher all the way through?
Yeah, it's pretty close. In college, I switched back and forth from a four seam to a sinker, but for me, like just kind of the difference from college and into pro ball was, and obviously even through high school growing up is, getting the ball to the bottom of the zone, whether that be, a four seam or a sinker or whatever it is. And then going into a pro ball with the Dodgers, we started to, play with some stuff at the top of the zone a little bit. It was starting to work in my favor. So for me, I was like, I'm sticking with it. But yeah, for the most part, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
So, you're obviously very smart. St. Mary's is a great college, Corona, great high school, and you can just tell by the way that you approach things that everything is very well thought. So how do analytics work for you? I know a lot of guys, some guys like it, some don't. I think most of them, there's a pretty good medium to this point as far as, well, yeah, I like them, but they have to work for me. So how do you incorporate all the analytics into your game?
Yeah, so for me, honestly, and this kind of just comes from every angle of baseball too. Like I try and be as open as I can. I like to take in any new information that I can get and kind of learn from it. But yeah, man, it's helped me a ton. I think that the biggest thing is understanding yourself and your stuff, knowing what's probably going to work for you, what's probably not. And that's not to say that it won't or it hasn't before, but if we're going to play the odds or play the percentages or whatever it is, it's super important to know your stuff. So I think that's been the biggest help for me so far in terms of analytics.
Yeah, and I know that, just doing some research and talking to some people about this and that, you're one of the most prepared people every time you go to the mound. You know your scouting reports. You love to know exactly what your game plan is going to be. And then the other thing that sticks out about the type of person you are, a baseball player, is the type of teammate you are. If just go back to the beginning of this interview, and it's pretty obvious that you love being a part of a team. You love your teammates. You love all of those aspects of it. And, that really is exactly what the Dodgers culture is built on. And I know people, every time I say culture and all that, they kind of roll their eyes and this and that, but that's real, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's, and it's something to where you can't get away from it. It's not 50-50. It's either you're in or you're out. And that's kind of just how it is with us as an org, I would say.
So you're at the highest level, and then now we're talking about being a great teammate and doing all these things that coaches always preach and this and that. So what would be your message for kids that want to become like Michael Hobbs and get in your position as far as, obviously it's great to have the talent, but, you got to be the great teammate. You got to do all the work and you got to prepare just like Michael Hobbs does.
Definitely. Yeah. I would say, kind of like I talked before with the analytics portion, a little bit different, but making sure that you're open, right? You're not super closed-minded. You're taking in all the information you can get that you can use, that you don't want to use, whatever that may be. And then, from going to high school on, taking care of your body early, whether that be your arm, your weights, your nutrition, all that sort of stuff. If you can kind of start that early and give yourself a steady incline going into college or pro ball or whatever that is, you're going to be on a head start and also a fast track going into whatever your next venture is.
Last question for me, and I know that you played in some big-time environments, both in high school and college, but boy, I'll tell you what, Midland, Michigan, the Great Lakes Loons, they put off a big-time environment there, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. We get the crowd going pretty good. Our media people and everyone help out, and they keep it lively and fun. And yeah, it's a good time over there in Midland.
So I know that you guys had the crazy comeback, and I can't remember who the second place team was, but the Dragons, I believe, is the Dayton Dragons. You guys were like 7 games behind them or something like that with 11 games to go in the first half, and you caught them, and you end up winning the first half championship, and it looked like you had a great time. So I know this last year. Can you give us a little bit of story about that and how cool that was for the team?
Yeah, that was awesome. The best part, honestly, was the fact that we had like a rain situation that it ended up turning into a doubleheader, whatever that may be.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was just, and, obviously we're not at our place. It's a little bit different for us. We're sitting in a away locker room. And it was awesome because it's a lot different when, you're at home and you've got, your home kind of surrounding you or whatever that may be. But the best part was that it just wasn't expected, right? From us, Obviously it was, but from other people looking into the league, right? They were at least supposed to split or take the series or whatever that may be. And yeah, we ended up coming out and taking it to them a little bit.
You guys had a good time with the celebration too, didn't you? I know Coach Chubb, Austin Chubb, you guys all had a great time, didn't you?
Yeah, that was awesome. That's part of it, man. Like everybody's, heard that speech, and you can't not, get chills when you're listening to it. But yeah, it was awesome.
We're going to the playoffs. Yeah. So, hey, man, that was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed following you this past season in 2022. I'm a big fan of your game, and I just love watching the confidence and just the way that you go at hitters. It's just awesome to watch. So, Michael Hobbs, thank you so much for joining Dodgers Daily.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.